Hello everyone, and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to contain my review of the latest summon showcase. It's another Gala Dragalia, this time round introducing a new water element Gala Dragon in the form of Gala Beast Ciella. So one of the Agito is now available as a dragon, another one of the Agito after we got Volk several months back. And besides that, this is also our New Year's showcase. So in addition to having this new Gala Dragon, we also have two new Worm Clan leaders present on this showcase. If you're newer to Dragalia Lost, every new year we tend to get a new character released from the continent or the island of Hinamoto, and these characters lead worm clans that are associated with animals of the zodiac. So in past years we've had the Boar Worm Clan leader, Ieyasu. He's the first one we got. We had Mitsuhide, associated with the rat or mouse. We had Nobunaga, associated with the horse. Then Seimei, who was tied to the ox, and Yoshitsune, tied to the rooster. This year around, we're getting a new Worm Clan leader for the Year of the Tiger, and also one for the Monkey Clan. So we have two of those. Those are limited time, but they're on the showcase. And we even have a new Worm Clan associated dragon from Hinamoto. So we also have the Tiger Clan dragon on this banner as well. So this is a pretty stacked one, and what's positive about this is that it was previously announced that we're going to have free daily summons on this banner. So make sure you're logging in. To some extent, the answer to the question of whether or not you should summon on this is a definite yes, because you can summon for free at least once every day. So make sure you're taking advantage of that as we head into the new year here, and hopefully you'll be able to get some of these new characters or dragons off of those free summons. But beyond that, I do think this is a good value showcase. I'm really happy to see everything present on one banner as opposed to being split up across multiple showcases where you then have to divide your resources and have a lesser shot of clearing everything. So it may not be a guarantee that if you put all your resources into this, you're necessarily going to get everything, because it's still hard to get these focus characters on Gala banners. But I do think that if you're willing to spend enough summoning currency to get toward a spark or 300 worm sigils, I think there's a pretty good shot that you'll be able to get everything on the showcase. Not guaranteed, some players may have to spend more than that as far as their summoning resources, but I think that the odds are pretty good. So I like this showcase a lot. Two powerful looking dragons, two exciting new Worm Clan adventures, and in the past, these adventures have often been pretty good at the time of release. They're also limited time, usually only available around the new year or occasionally in other rerun banners that'll run maybe midway through the year or just sort of at off times when there's no other showcase happening. So everything on this showcase is going to be pretty lucrative to grab. The limited time adventures and Dragon in particular probably not going to be around for quite a while. And then even Gala Beast Ciella seems like a powerful new dragon, but just like Volk before her, she has some drawbacks. So we're going to talk about all that in this video. There's a lot to get into today, so let's go and get into the analysis of the skills and abilities here on the dragons and adventures respectively. A few things to just point out about the showcase. It's going to start on the 31st. It's going to last until the 4th. You're getting free daily summons during that period. And they also announced that after this showcase, there's going to be a prize showcase that lasts a week. And Shingen and Yukimura, as well as the new dragon, are going to be on that showcase, but they're not featured, meaning they don't have a heightened appearance rate if you wait for the prize showcase. So if you're going for them, you're probably going to want to do it on the showcase that's happening right now, the Gala showcase, not the prize showcase. And if you wait to see what's on the prize showcase, my expectation is that this prize showcase is going to be how they rerun the past year's Zodiac characters, like the ones that I mentioned, the past Worm Clan leaders, as well as some of their followers and adherents and their related dragons. So that's my perspective on what I think will happen. Maybe we'll get lucky and they'll even throw in Summer Ieyasu, Summer Mitsuhide, and Summer Morishiten in there as well, because they were limited and came at off time of year. But that's my expectation for the prize showcase. I still think that the Zodiac leaders at the time of release, that's when they tend to be at their best. So while there are some good adventurers among the past ones, I think Mitsuhide probably stands out to me as the one that still holds up the best today, maybe Nobunaga as well. But while they are pretty good, I would probably lean toward Shingen and Yukimura as being the most relevant for today's content. So that's one of the reasons I'd skew toward this Gala Dragalia, even if you're missing some of the past limited time adventures, but we won't know exactly how they'll return until we get more info on this prize showcase. And that will get on the 4th, I believe. So let's go ahead and read on here. Gala Beast Ciella, Shingen is our Tiger Clan leader as a Wind Axe, and Yukimura is our Shadow Lance Monkey Clan leader. And then for our limited time dragon, we have Fudo Myo-o, a Wind Element dragon. And then there's a reminder that Worm Sigils, the currency used to spark, is limited to the banner that you spent those summons on. So if you do summons on the Gala banner, get some Worm Sigils, they're not going to carry over to the prize showcase. All right, and with all that out of the way, on to Gala Beast Ciella. So Gala Beast Ciella, portrait looks great, awaken Agito and plunge all into hopelessness. It's cool how there's a staggered release between the Agito in their dragon forms and their adventurer forms, because we did just get Ayaha and Toha in December. And so now we have our second of the Gala Beast variants in the form of Ciella after Volk. So her skills, or her one skill, is Frozen Anguish. It deals damage to surrounding enemies and inflicts frostbite. Okay, simple enough, but it is a pretty good amount of damage. Her abilities are Wings of Judgment 5 and Desperate Agony 2. So Wings of Judgment 5, if the user is attuned to water, so on water adventurers, you're going to get 100% strength. That is very good. And also, regardless of their attunement, grants the user a Dragon Strike while shapeshifted as Beast Ciella. So if you remember, Dragon Strike is essentially a Force Strike while you're a dragon. This Dragon Strike deals damage to the target and nearby enemies and summons a Crystal Arrow. Up to 2 Crystal Arrows can exist simultaneously, but they will disappear automatically over time. Beast Ciella's standard attacks will bounce off these arrows. In addition, hitting a Crystal Arrow with Frozen Anguish will cause it to deal damage to surrounding enemies and disappear. So my expectation on how she might work is, if you fought against Ciella as a boss fight, she has a frozen laser beam spinning attack, for lack of a better description. She shoots a beam of ice, an ice beam, in a circle. That's kind of the animation I could imagine Frozen Anguish taking on, essentially hitting pretty much the entire arena but in a circle. And then if these crystal arrows that you drop using your Force Strike are present, what usually happens when you fight her as a boss, once those get hit with her ice beam, they explode and send ice projectiles in 4 or 5 directions. So I could see it being similar to that, but it doesn't say how much damage the crystal arrows do here, but you can drop 2 of them. And the fact that also your standard attacks will bounce off the crystal arrows, I'm imagining that at least some of Ciella's standard attacks will involve her shooting out her rebounding arrows, because that's another one of her core mechanics as a boss. These arrows that she shoots out that bounce off the corners of the arena. In this case, it sounds like they're just going to bounce off the crystal arrows. So I still think that's going to be a pretty cool and faithful implementation of how she originally worked. Granted, she can't cause freeze, she just causes frostbite. But in most endgame content, you're not really able to freeze bosses anymore. In Agito content, which is now able to be cleared via skip tickets, so below the legend difficulty, you can freeze, and it can be relevant there against like Volk, let's say, if he's plagued. But for the legend content and above and the Sinister Dominion, I don't think freezing really comes up, so it's probably not too big of a downside that she's not able to do that. And let's read on her second ability. Desperate Agony 2. If the user is attuned to water, increases damage to frostbitten enemies by 15%. So that's quite nice alongside her already high amount of strength. That's another axis through which you get increased damage, another bracket of damage. In addition, standard attacks will apply the vulnerability debuff while shapeshifted as Beast Ciella when the combo count is 15 or higher. Vulnerability can stack up to 10 times, and each stack reduces defense by 1% and frostbite resistance by 2% for the remainder of the quest unless removed by the enemy. Aha, so that's pretty good. I was going to say that when you compare her to Volk here, Volk did extra damage to multiple afflictions. So if enemies were poisoned or storm lashed, he would get a bonus. And for Ciella, she only does it for frostbite, which kind of makes sense because that's the main affliction in the water element, other than bog and freeze, which just don't last all that long. So, but the other way she can increase damage is this vulnerability debuff. So essentially, if you're able to keep your combo count high enough and do 10 standard attacks while you're shapeshifted, you can get a 10% defense reduction permanently on the enemy. Because it says it's the remainder of the quest, unless they have some kind of built-in way of cleansing debuffs, like Ciella herself as a boss. When she goes into Mist Veil, she cleanses debuffs on her. And you also reduce their frostbite resistance by 2%, so if you stack this 10 times, you're going to get 20% frostbite reduction, which could be really nice for keeping up frostbite against enemies that have otherwise maxed out their resistance to it, because when you afflict enemies, they slowly build up a tolerance, and when it caps out, you can no longer afflict them. That won't be the case if you have this 20% frostbite resistance down applied to them as a debuff. So this is actually kind of cool. It reminds me a lot of like Midgard Stormer Zero or Gozu Tenno, the way that their skills permanently reduce enemy resistance to wind damage or flame damage respectively. This just permanently reduces defense. And that seems pretty solid to me. Not that many enemies can cleanse debuffs that they have. So I like this, but here's the downside, and these Gala Beast dragons so far have continued to have these downsides. With Volk, it was that he was very susceptible to afflictions. And now with Ciella, here it is, also regardless of their attunement, reduces the user's defense by 20% and shortens the window between hitting an enemy and the combo counter resetting by 1 second. So your overall defense is going to be reduced by 20%. If there's any unavoidable damage in a battle, that could potentially be risky, especially if you're a ranged character who already has reduced defense, or if your character has some kind of lower defense in their mechanics. The combo counter resetting thing is also could also be challenging. There is a good amount of combo time chain abilities in the water element, so you could get that back to a degree. And I would also say that I think the Agito weapons and then hopefully the Primal Dragon weapons that we're now getting will also be able to make it so that your combo counter time goes up. But this is going to make it a little harder to stack all that vulnerability unless Ciella has really rapid fire basic attacks when she's in her dragon form. So there's definitely a trade-off here. And if you already have like Gala Reborn Poseidon, let's say, or even Summer Marishiten, then this may not be a necessary pull for you. It doesn't look as strong as Volk to me, because Volk also had a team strength amp when you shapeshift, which means that Volk even had some applications off element, just as a really good dragon form to buff your team. Here, I'm not really seeing that as much. Yes, the vulnerability stacking could be good when you shapeshift, so it's kind of a team-wide benefit, but I don't know, I'm not quite seeing it. But then again, I didn't expect Volk to be as good as he ended up being. I just saw Volk as really good as far as damage dealers in the wind element. Turns out, he could also be used on support just for the dragon form. So it's possible Ciella gets used in that way, like enabling Frostbite, Affliction, Punisher Wormprince or something like that, but I don't see it here just, on the surface level. She still seems like a very good dragon, but I think that now with our 5th Unbind Dragons, like if you have Leviathan, that's going to be pretty good for you for a lot of content. Does weaken as the fight drags on, but it's still a pretty solid dragon. If you have a Siren on like a Karina, let's say, or another adventurer who does a lot of skill damage, that could also be effective. Or even GNC, if you're running like a Mitsuba and want to be spamming your inspiration, let's say you're in the Mercurial Gauntlet, like that's a pretty effective strategy in that mode, to just spam shared skills and apply inspiration to your team. So water is pretty deep as far as the amount of good dragons that are available. Some adventurers like Lapis or Sharpshooter Cerise that don't rely as much on their skills for damage as they do their attacks or force strikes. For them, having just a high strength stat is really good. So if you don't have Gala Reborn Poseidon and you do have like a Lapis, let's say, then you may not have a great dragon to equip her with. And this just, the sheer stats could be quite good. But I would be a little concerned about the defense down, to be honest. If you're playing against Legend Twins, there are some screen-wide purple attacks that could be risky, and especially if the Twins have accumulated some strength buffs, those can potentially kill a ranged adventurer. So there is a risk-reward element here for sure. If you're using Gala Beast Ciella against Lilith on the Legend difficulty, since that's still pretty new content, you use water adventures in the first phase of that fight, there I could see Ciella probably being pretty good, because other than the red marker that everybody has to group up on, I don't think that Lilith has too many unavoidable attacks. I think most of her attacks can be dodged. Even her purple attacks, you just have to learn her patterns and you can dodge them. Unless I'm forgetting one of her mechanics, I feel like for Legend difficulty, Lilith would be a pretty good choice for Gala Beast Ciella to hopefully increase your damage output. So that might be one good place to utilize Ciella here. But overall, I see her as a powerful dragon, but not necessarily the main reason to summon on the showcase. I think it's more so just the package of what you're getting on this showcase that strikes me as really good. So another good dragon here, a good wind axe adventure, and then finally Yukimura, a good shadow lance. So let's continue on past Ciella and talk about Fudo Myo-o here. I do all for the sake of Lord Shingen, the dragon of the Tiger Clan, one of the 12 who serve Amaterasu. Though quiet and withdrawn, Shingen is a flame ever burning in her heart. On rare occasions, her feelings become strong enough to make folks around her uncomfortable. Oh my gosh, we're in for a fun New Year story here, aren't we? The characterization on all the Worm Clan leaders is one of my favorite parts about the New Year in Dragalia Lost. I really feel like the devs did a great job making each Worm Clan leader have a distinct personality and quirks. So every New Year feels quite different than the last. So anyway, as far as a gameplay standpoint, Fudo Myo-o is a wind element dragon, and her skill, Kurikara Gust, deals damage to the target and nearby enemies and grants the user the Mantra of Compassion effect. So Mantra of Compassion has 2 charges, and its potency is 100% of max HP. It doesn't stack, and then this also causes Stormlash. So our abilities explain what Mantra of Compassion does. First of all, just the 70% strength wind dragon. That's just normal now in the world of 5 unbinds on dragons, and in the world of Gala Reborn dragons, frankly, that's just kind of normal. So her second effect is something we're actually looking to actively improve her kit, and it does. Divine Mantras 2, if the user is attuned to wind, so if you equip her to a wind adventure, at the start of quest grants the user a Mantra of Compassion effect. It nullifies damage up to 100% of the user's max HP up to 2 times, and it will not stack. So essentially it's like a complete shield, like it shields you for any amount of damage up to 2 times. When all uses of this effect are consumed, the user will be granted the Mantra of Wrath effect, and 50% of their dragon gauge will be filled. So, if you get hit by 2 things, they're nullified, and then you immediately get a dragon. That's pretty good, and Mantra of Wrath, let's read on. After activating, the Dragon Gauge fill effect will not activate again for 180 seconds. Okay, so you have to wait 3 minutes. That can be pretty long in some content before getting that free fill effect again. So you might get it like twice in a quest if you're lucky, especially because some of the longer content, like the legend difficulty of the Sinister Dominion, you switch elements. So you're not going to even be on the same team another 3 minutes into the fight necessarily. But anyway, Mantra of Wrath increases attack rate by 10% and adds 30% to the modifier applied to damage against water-attuned enemies. So when you start to look at that, that's pretty legit. 70% strength plus 30% extra damage against water-attuned enemies. That is already like Gala Reborn Zephyr status. And then you also get extra 10% attack rate. And it doesn't say that when you get this Mantra of Compassion that you lose Mantra of Wrath either. So the way that I think this works is you get hit twice in a quest, you run out of Mantra of Compassion. Then you get a free shapeshift and you get Mantra of Wrath permanently for the rest of the quest, which means you're going to have your 30% extra damage, your 10% extra attack rate, and your free shapeshift. And when you shapeshift, you're going to get Mantra of Compassion back, but not lose the Mantra of Wrath. That's how I'm understanding this, but it's possible that they oscillate between the two of them. But if you can get both of them, even better. But even if not, sticking with Mantra of Wrath, this is a very good damage-dealing dragon at that point. So Gala Reborn Zephyr has another really important, valuable property in that Gala Reborn Zephyr is really good for bird spam, as it's called. So in the Mercurial Gauntlet specifically, or in any other context where you can get a lot of dragons, Gala Reborn Zephyr gets 2 dragon skills. They're very high damage. It has really good damage modifiers. And the fact that you get 2 skills means you can tank more purple attacks from Roy. And so one of the most common techniques to easily beat the level 70 Mercurial Gauntlet with the Wind team is essentially get any adventure that has some good inherent passive abilities like some extra strength or skill damage, and just put Gala Reborn Zephyr on them and continuously spam the bird. Become the bird, do your skills, it's going to do millions of damage, and then you can defeat Roy. And that's the tankiest Roy. At least I think so. I'm not sure if the latest one might have surpassed it, but that was like 20 million above all the other elements beforehand, I believe. So I think that that's like the tankiest Roy, and it wasn't that easy to take on. If you're using like a Gala Ronzel team, you can clear it with like a minute left, but it's, I think, still not the easiest without an optimized team. You kind of want Not as well to get you more dragon transformations via her Chain Co ability. But yeah, there's some use cases for Gala Reborn Zephyr. That dragon form is really good. But outside of that, I mean, this to me seems sort of better in principle. Having said that, you're going to have to... Well, no, actually. You're not even going to have to shapeshift to use this. So this could be used on an AI because the AI just has to get hit twice. And then everything will work. But, AI are really good at dodging, so for some content, it might not be the greatest. But imagine you put this on your lead character. Then they get 2 free dodges, essentially, 2 free damage prevention, even against the purple, presumably. And then they start to get these other bonuses, including extra Dragon Gauge, which could go toward like a Draconic Resurrection print as well, if you're autoing. Or you could throw a Reflexive Evasion on them to get them even more opportunities to dodge. So right now, is this super good? I would have to say probably not. Just because the content that you farm where you use wind element characters, you don't necessarily need this damage mitigation that much. So like if you're battling or farming Ciella, it's pretty farmable with really basic dragons, including Gold Fafnirs if you have Templar Hope and a setup revolving around him and let's say like Lowen and Ronzel. But for Yaldabaoth, maybe it's better there. Against Yaldabaoth, on the legend difficulty, where you start with your win team, I think the concern is more so just dealing with the amount of enemies, and even if you get this 50% dragon gauge, it doesn't necessarily help you because Twisted Blessing is going to prevent you from shapeshifting. Like the damage mitigation, Yaldabaoth isn't really doing a lot of things that are going to be unavoidable to you. The ones that he does are like applying corrosion and Curse of Nihility to everybody, and that doesn't seem like a great use case because you're still going to get corrosion even if you don't get damaged by like the global tiny shockwave that happens. So yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, basically it seems like a good dragon there just because it's already like good, kind of like fundamentally good with just 10% attack rate, 30% extra damage against the right element, and then 70% extra strength. But beyond that, I mean, Midgardsormr 0 is like really good there because it can clear out all the enemies on screen. So I think this is a powerful dragon, but once again, kind of like what we talked about with Gala Beast Ciella, like there are very viable alternatives currently. So I would say like this is more about the future and like sort of future-proofing yourself so that maybe when Primal Mercury releases, you have this really good dragon who's even better in that context because there's more likely to be some of these high dragon style unavoidable attacks, let's say, like the one we saw in Primal Midgardsormr. So maybe that's where the full power really shines, but even now, it's a good dragon, solid dragon, very good combination of abilities. I just don't know if this like damage prevention aspect or the shapeshifting for free aspect is going to matter all that much. Okay, so let's read on here. Finally on to the adventures at this point in the video, but as I said, there's a lot to get through today. So Shingen, I'm swift as the wind, fierce as the fire, and immovable as the mountain. Love the design on this guy. Our new Tiger Worm Clan leader. He looks great. I like how there's a variety of people as these Worm Clan leaders. That's one of my favorite things. Like Mitsuhide, completely different than Shingen in both appearance and probably in personality as well. So he's a defense unit, just want to point that out. Leader of the Tiger Worm Clan, one of the 12 Worm Clans that govern Hinamoto. Though he looks the part of a war-weary veteran, he's younger than his imposing visage suggests. With the talent for looking after others, he's loved by vassals, subjects, and Worm Clan leaders alike. Awesome. His skills, the first one is shareable, and yeah, there's a lot to get through here. But his first skill is shareable with the cost of 7 for Inkazen, and his second skill is Fearless Tiger. And then he has co-ability, chain co-ability, abilities. We'll start with the abilities this time around. So, Tiger's Tenacity 2 grants the user stacks of the Veteran's Medal effect when they take damage. 2 stacks of it. Veteran's Medal can stack up to 3 times, and after it's granted, the ability won't grant it again for 20 seconds. Also grants the user a unique Force Strike. While charging this Force Strike, damage taken will be reduced. Damage from some attacks cannot be reduced this way. After charging, if the user takes damage while executing this Force Strike, that damage will be reduced, and the user will be granted 3 stacks of Veteran's Medal. The user will be immune to knockback while charging this Force Strike as well as when executing it. In addition, when the user has Battle Fervor, the 3rd and 5th attacks in their standard attack combo will create cyclones that pursue the target. So he seems very tanky. Being able to charge this Force Strike, be immune to knockback, send out cyclones with your basic attacks. I could see him maybe being a fun character to play in the Kaleidoscape, even though Axes struggle a little bit there with the Axemen and Defender enemies and Troll enemies because they need a high hit count to defeat. I could see this being a really fun character to like charge your Force Strike and then spam it against a wave of enemies. Veteran's Medal and Battle Fervor, it doesn't really fully say what they do yet. Battle Fervor gives you cyclones, but we don't know how to get it. And Veteran's Medal, you can get up to 3 stacks, but it doesn't say what they do here. So Farouche res 100%, which is fine. Now with the new Wormfront slot from Kaleidoscape, I think it's going to be easier to fit in additional affliction resistances if you want them. And Shingen and his Chainco ability has some Bog res potential anyway. And then Tiger's Ferocity 2, when the user has Battle Fervor, okay, so here's another thing that Battle Fervor benefits you. increases the damage dealt by standard attacks by 50%, and increases strength by 20%. Whoa, okay, that's pretty significant. So co-ability is defense, standard for axes, and then the chain co-ability, when you have a team defense amp, you're going to get 100% bog res. Pretty nice. So let's read through the skills now. Friend Kazen is shareable with the cost of 7. It begins preparing a powerful attack, after which the skill will deal damage to surrounding enemies, apply a burst gambit called Tiger's Burst, and inflict Stormlash. Alright, this is new terminology. These are new terms here. Burst gambit. That's not something that Dragalia Lost has had before. Continually tapping the screen while preparing this attack will result in dealing an additional attack for each tap, up to the total number of Veteran's Medal stacks the user currently has. So you can get up to 3 of those, so you could tap up to 3 extra times for 3 extra hits. If the user deals 3 additional attacks at once this way, all stacks of Veteran's Medal are consumed, and then you get Battle Fervor. The user is immune to knockback while preparing this skill's attack, as well as when executing it. If this skill is used while the user has Battle Fervor, the screen can be tapped for up to 3 additional hits without having or consuming Veteran's Medal, but it will not grant Battle Fervor. Okay, so if you're in Battle Fervor already, you can get the 3 hits if you want, but it's not going to constantly loop you back into Battle Fervor. And then when the Gambit is activated, Tiger's Burst, it will restore HP to all teammates. Okay, so let's see. You prepare a powerful attack that causes Stormlash, so that's 1 hit of damage that causes Stormlash here at the top. And you get the Tiger's Burst Gambit. Burst Gambit counter of 30, and when it goes off, you get 140 recovery potency. So I can only speculate as to how this works. With a Burst Gambit counter, maybe that's like a hit count counter, and when you get down to 0, you trigger the effect. Maybe it could be like some other unit of measurement, for lack of a better term, like it's not really tied to hit count, but like tied to your damage output, and you like go up 30 notches depending on your damage. Kind of like one of those hammers you swing at like the fair, and you go up a little meter, right? Like maybe it's something like that where you have to get it up to 30 steadily by dealing damage. That's a little bit mysterious, not gonna lie, but if you have some control over it, then being able to heal at the right moment could be kind of cool. As of now, it doesn't seem like that part would be particularly relevant for our current slate of content. First additional attack, if you get the first extra hit off by having at least 1 Veteran's Medal, that's 800 extra damage and 30-second long 10% strength reduction. If you get the second hit off, you're causing Scorch Rend. Whoa, okay. That's kind of sweet. I don't know why you're causing Scorch Rend, but that's kind of sweet. And relevant, probably, against Yaldabaoth, because even though Yaldabaoth starts off Water Element in Legend difficulty, then Yaldabaoth becomes Wind Element in the second phase, so you might actually be able to Scorch Rend even in Phase 1. Just like with Lilith, you could Flash Burn her in Phase 1, even with your Water team. Third additional attack, 800 extra damage and recovery potency of 35, which is low, but you also get knockback immunity and you get the Battle Fervor, which, as we saw below, gives you a really big benefit. And the skill energy required here is fairly low. For an Axe Adventurer, if you're getting off the 5th hit of their combo, you get a lot of SP off of that, I believe, so I don't think this is going to take too long to be able to charge up. Now, it's a shared skill, where I presume you might get like all the bonuses. It is expensive, but this is kind of interesting. So a big question for this, which has become more and more relevant, is like, what is the AoE property like on this, which is sort of not super well described in text, but as soon as you see the animation of this, will become much more clear, like how relevant this is. But for Yaldabaoth in particular, like just having good AoE, being able to deal with a lot of enemies is really relevant, and that's also quite relevant in Kaleidoscape. So to the extent that this just like has him bashing the ground kind of like Kimono Luka style, where it's like a pretty wide radius of effect, I could see this being very, very good. The Gambit right now doesn't seem like particularly important as far as the overall evaluation of the kit. Stormlash is good too, notably no Dispel or anything here. And then Fearless Tiger grants the user a defense amp and the Veteran's Medal effect. Okay, so that's another way to get Veteran's Medal besides taking damage. If this skill is used while the user has Battle Fervor, it will grant the user a defense amp, increase their max HP, and reduce damage taken. Alright, that's pretty nice too. So you still get a defense amp, but you also get max HP buff of 10% and 70% damage reduction, which doesn't last very long, but in future content, if there's unavoidable damage segments, maybe that could be a good time to activate this. Otherwise, you could just activate it. It's probably good to have damage reduction, given that you're a character who gets Veteran's Medal stacks by intentionally taking damage. So yeah, this is a very interesting one. I think some of the things to look out for with Shingen are, one, what is this unique Force Strike like? Like, is this going to be your primary means of attack because it gives you a lot of SP generation, which then lets you use your skills? If that's the case, maybe you're just charging this Force Strike a lot of the time, therefore you're just getting hit by enemies, but when you unleash it, you get a full use of this skill or something. That would be kind of similar to Zubaje playstyle, so maybe it's kind of like that. I see a lot of similarities here just as far as the macho look and taking damage, right? Zubaje had the enmity kind of kit where he did more damage at low HP though, and that's not necessarily present here. But overall, this is a character I'd be pretty excited to try out. If he's anything like a normal axe, they tend to have a pretty wide radius of effect with their Force Strikes and attacks, so I could still see him being pretty good at clearing out waves of enemies, regardless of just how wide the hitbox is on this skill. Even with his Force Strike, that could be another potential way he can do that. So this seems like a fun one to me, and the Battle Fervor mechanic, I could just imagine him having a fiery aura and just hammering on the opponent. So I'm pretty excited about testing out Shingen. Yaldabaoth seems like a good use case. For earlier content, like Agito content, probably overkill, but Legend Ciella can still be tough for some folks. Having Stormlash probably going to be helpful for that, but with that, you really want more Rapid Dispel because of the defense buffs that she gives herself. So, and sometimes the knockback immunity might not help you either. You might end up inadvertently taking more damage than you want to. But you can kind of play around that other than in autoplay. Okay, so finally, let's talk about Yukimura here. I'll never stop running on the path I believe in, no matter how reckless it is. She is a Shadow Lance attack unit, the leader of the Monkey Clan, one of the 12 worm clans who govern Hinamoto. Shingen rescued her from clan infighting when she was young, and she immediately threw herself headfirst into martial arts, training in the hopes of surpassing his greatness. Alright, love her design too. I like this in the background. I don't know exactly what that is, but I wonder if that's supposed to represent her fighting spirit or something like that. I think that's pretty funny. I mean, she might be a fun character, more of a humorous character in that regard. I think the combination of her and Shingen is also going to be really entertaining. Anyway, as far as her skills and abilities, we have another lengthy kit to read through here. So let's start with the co-abilities, I guess, and then we'll read the abilities and we'll go back to the skills. So as a Lance, she has HP plus 15%, which benefits the entire team. That's standard. And then she has Shadow Combo times 6 as her chain co-ability, which I'm honestly not sure if we've seen that before in the Shadow element. I should double check on that. Give me a moment, I'll double check on that on the Dragalia Lost Wiki. A fantastic resource that you should definitely check out, especially once this banner is released. You'll get all the good details on everything else that wasn't shown on this page on that wiki. But on the adventures list, there's a co-ability view, and I apologize for not being able to show this on screen. But yeah, in the Shadow element, no combo time chain co-ability, so this is a first. This is pretty big. In Flame, we have Nobunaga, Ezlith, Summer Alex, Kozunaha. In Water, we have Dragon Cleo and Gala Elisan. In Wind, we have Grimnir and Mine. And in Light, of course, Mitsuhide and Fritz. So this is new to the Shadow element. So if you've had any trouble keeping up Flurry in the Shadow element so far, this is an opportunity to do so. Could help with dragons like Gala Cat Sith. in the context where you can still really use her, because you can't really use her against Curse of Nihility content that effectively, but against like Kaiyan Legend difficulty, if that's something you're working on, Cat Sith is already able to be maintained pretty well with overdamage though. So I don't know how much combo time is really going to help you out, but like maybe this enables flurry prints on like your axe adventures or something like that. Not too big of a deal, but it is noteworthy, I would say. So abilities, Might of the Monkey 2 activates the following effects once the user's fighting spirit is unleashed. The user's strength is increased by 10%. Okay, fighting spirit being referenced, I just appreciate that from her background art. The user's strength is increased 10%, the user's attack skill is increased by 40%. Granted immunity to knockback, standard attack patterns and first and second skills are changed. The user is granted a unique dodge that deals damage to surrounding enemies. Also, by tapping the screen during this dodge, the user can interrupt it and perform a unique dash attack toward the target. Also, if a unique dash attack or force strike is followed immediately by a standard attack, the user's combo will begin with the second attack in their standard attack combo. Okay, that was a lot, but these last three effects or two effects, I guess, these last two paragraphs here, 2 bullet points, are essentially how Halloween Silas worked. He had a special dash attack that you could start your basic combo chain out of by tapping the screen. So that's kind of sweet. The knockback immunity, the difference in standard attack patterns and skill, well, we can read about the skill, but we're not going to know like what the new standard attack patterns do until we have footage available. And then the 10% strength increase and extra skill damage is good. So good to see that. Paralysis res 100%, flurry strength 20%. The flurry strength is nice. Paralysis res solid. Not a whole lot more to really say on that. So now we come to the skills, and we have Monkey Overdrive. Deals damage to surrounding enemies and activates skill shift if the attack connects. Phase 2 increases the skill's area of effect, while Phase 3 increases its area of effect even more and unleashes the user's fighting spirit. The user will be immune to knockback during this attack. So already in my head, what I'm thinking about is our next Sinister Dominion boss on Legend, probably going to be Azura. And for Azura, you want to be able to hit in a wide area to destroy those orbs that boost your damage. They tend to spawn far across the map, and if you have a character like Alberius that can hit a lot of orbs at once, that's pretty good for you. So the bigger and bigger area of effect to me strikes me as something where you could like one-shot these orbs even by staying where you are. I think that could be very promising. If this skill is used after the user's fighting spirit has been unleashed, a variant called Monkey Tiger Wrath will be used instead. Monkey Tiger Wrath deals damage to enemies directly ahead and applies a burst gambit called Monkey's Burst. Tapping the screen a set number of times during the attack will power up its final hit, which will deal increased damage, apply Monkey's Burst again, and partially fill the skill gauge for Monkey Tiger Chaos. Oh my goodness, Monkey Tiger Chaos, what is going on here? When Monkey's Burst is activated, it will deal damage to the affected target and nearby enemies. Alright, so you see the damage properties here. Pretty high skill energy cost on this. So Phase 2, deal more damage, you hit a wider area. Phase 3, the widest area, and you deal more damage but split into 2 hits. When Fighting Spirit is unleashed, you deal this much damage, and then 1 extra hit max. So let's see what that is. Oh, that's just, you tap it up to power up the final hit. So if you tap enough, you get this much damage on your final hit. And then, oh, this has a lower skill energy cost. That's interesting. And then special effects, Monkey's Burst. Burst Gambit counter, 15. Damage. Oh, really high damage on this Monkey's Burst. And then skill prep potency, 15%. Huh. There's a lot to read here. So what does this do with skill prep? Oh, partially fill the gauge from Monkey Tiger Chaos, which is her second skill once it's in its second state. Interesting. So what I'm imagining with like unleashing your fighting spirit is kind of like her going Super Saiyan or something. Like maybe Kaioken if Super Saiyan, you know, if you're in Gen 1 or in the early days of the Z arc, let's say, where you're just like getting that aura around you. And then I could imagine, I mean, I was expecting like maybe high hit count here. Maybe it'll be on her standard attacks, but just her like punching kind of like aura style. But I don't know. This is interesting. It seems like it's going to take a while to get Fighting Spirit just based off of this, because you have to get into the third use of this. But let's see what her second skill does. This one being shareable with the cost of 6. Deals damage to the target and nearby enemies and partially fills the skill gauge for Monkey Overdrive. Okay, Monkey Overdrive is her first skill. Cross Dive is her second skill. Cross Dive. If this skill is used after the user's fighting spirit has been unleashed, a variant called Monkey Tiger Chaos will be used instead. Monkey Tiger Chaos deals damage to enemies directly ahead and inflicts Shadow Blight. Tapping the screen a set number of times during the final hit will power it up, which will deal increased damage and inflict Scorch Rend. I love the fact that they just like have such burning passion that they're just causing Scorch Rend, even though they're wind and shadow characters. And that's normally a flame thing. That's pretty cute. So this actually has a lower skill energy cost, and it gives you like 15% back of your gauge on your first skill. When your fighting spirit is unleashed, okay, here we go. This is what I wanted to see, and not a bad skill energy cost. The 21 hits is just gotta be so satisfying, even though they're small hits. I think that's gonna be very fun to use, just like punching or striking with your lance, like super rapid fire. And then you can actually power up the last 2 hits to be pretty substantial if you tap enough. And otherwise, just Scorch Rend and Shadow Blight, kind of your standard stuff there. As far as flame adventures go, so there's Asura and Yaldebea. Oh, why am I talking about flame? She's a shadow adventure, but I see the Scorch Rend. So as far as shadow adventures, there's not Lilith. Lilith is shadow. Who do you fight with shadow adventures? Gosh. So Asura's one of the bosses. Oh, and Surtur. Surtur's the other boss that you fight with shadow adventures. And for Surtur, you do want to afflict Surtur on the master difficulty and below. So yeah, she might be pretty good for that. Maybe when Legend comes out. Right now for Surtur, even for master, like there's pretty reliable auto setups, especially if you got Halloween Silas, Alberius, some of the other good pieces, Summer of Erica. But maybe she could fit into some other comps that are as of yet unknown. And just in general, having 2 afflictions is going to be pretty nice for manual play. So yeah, she looks pretty fun to use, pretty solid. Once again, doesn't have the Dispel here, so that could be a little bit of a concern with an adventure like Yukimura. If you're still working on Kaiyan, some of the earlier content that you want to use Shadow Adventures for, then maybe she's not going to be the most ideal for that. All in all, I just think the amount of limited characters, the new Gala Dragon, the limited dragon looking strong, I just feel like this as a banner is a very complete package. So I still think it's one that I feel is worth summoning on. I hope you enjoyed this video as we broke down everything that was announced about this showcase. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Take care, and I'll see you next time.